What is flash fill and how do you use it? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with Excel's autofill feature. You know that convenient little plus sign you see when you double click the button corner of a cell? And then the column autofills with a series based on the top. While I, and probably you too, use that 1,000 times a day, FlashFill offers you a bit more of an intuitive tool. Instead of filling a series based on the top cell, FlashFill considers your top cells and the values in the previous columns to identify a pattern and autofill the rest based on that observed outline. It's much like a formula that way. But where a formula has specific rules to handle every situation, FlashFill is limited by the perception of your structured pattern. Or in simple terms, Excel takes its best guess at what you want, but it's not a mind reader.
Before we get started, we need to make sure that you have enabled the flash fill feature in Excel. Chances are that it's already enabled, but let's make sure. Go ahead and select File and choose Options at the bottom. Now select Advanced, and under the first section here, check the box to automatically flash fill your cells if it isn't already. Then hit OK. So there are two ways you can use the flash fill option. First, you can navigate to the Data tab, and under Data Tools, you'll see the icon for flash fill. If it's not there, go back to your Options menu and adjust the Customize ribbon. The second way to activate flash fill is with the keyboard shortcut Control-E. Let's give it a try. Our first three columns are portions of a full name. If we want to combine the separate parts into one, we can enter the desired result in the corresponding cell and have flash fill do the rest. So type the name in the format you'd like and hit Enter. With the cell below it selected, you can now hit the flash fill button on the ribbon or press the Control-E shortcut. Looks pretty good, right? Well, remember those limitations I mentioned? Let me show you what I mean. If you look at the two names that Excel filled that have no middle initial, there's an extra blank space between the first and last name. You see, flash fill can only build upon a pattern, and we only gave it one row to determine that pattern. To get around this little problem, let's give flash fill a second row to consider its perceived outline. In the second cell, type in the name of how you'd want it to look, with a single space between first and last name values. Hit Enter and then flash fill the rest of the column. Much better. Now Excel knows to ignore that blank cell if it occurs again. But before we move on, let's pretend we're only given the full name in one column. Instead of combining data, this time we want to extract the middle initial. We'll type F for the first cell and execute our flash fill for the rest. While this worked, you can't always expect it to. I wouldn't have been surprised if Excel filled in the first name where no middle initial exists. Just keep that in mind, as sometimes you'll need to give flash fill more examples to identify a successful pattern. Now I want to show you what flash fill can do when you're toiling away reformatting some data. Here we have a small list of unformatted phone numbers and best times to call. Flash fill can help clean this data up before we send it off to the intended recipient. In cell C2, let's re-enter the phone number in a more appropriate format. Add some parentheses for the area code and a hyphen before the last four digits. Hit Enter and then press Control-E to flash fill the column. For the best time to call, I've already formatted the output column to my desired values of hours, minutes, and seconds. In the first output cell, I'll type out 9 a.m. just the way I want to see it and hit Enter. Next, I'll hit Control-E to fill the rest. Can you spot the problem? The values that aren't listed exactly on the hour have two extra zeros in them, but like before, we can fix this by applying a second row for the flash fill pattern to consider. So I'll manually enter my second output, hit Enter, and flash fill the remaining range. Just be careful with reformatting on a larger scale like this. Unless you're sure the original data is easily understood by Excel, I'd take caution on accepting the results without further examination. Alright, next, let's talk more about extracting data with flash fill like we did with the middle initials. Only this time, we're looking at data you'd commonly find from a CSV file where all the columns are jumbled together. So we've got a list of stationery products and their various ordering details. We want to pull out the specific product and its ordering SKU for future use. To do this, I'll enter the product for the first row and its SKU in the corresponding cell. Now, if you haven't figured this out yet, flash fill doesn't allow us to fill multiple columns at once. It's another one of those limitations. If that's what you're looking for, you'd actually want to use a nested formula, the text to columns feature, or even Power Query to get the job done. I put a link in the card above if you're interested. But for now, let's continue and use the flash fill with each column separately. Perfect. Next up, everyone's favorite task, cleaning your data. Unfortunately, flash fill in Excel can only help you so much with this, but we'll give it a shot and see how far it can take us. Looking at the sheet, there are 4 columns that are clearly in different formats, case sensitivity, and riddled with unnecessary blank spaces. As usual, let's fill in our first output row and flash fill the rest. Simple, right? Well, the first 3 columns are pretty basic, but only because I made it that way. If you had some of the original state cells typed out completely, flash fill wouldn't be able to determine the abbreviation for them unless you gave it an entire list of states to build a pattern. Just keep that in mind when using this feature to organize your data. Now for the dates. They actually flash filled correctly despite cell D4 being entered as July 7th, 1905. The reason being that the cell is formatted as a date, but the original value entered was 02015. So that little extra 0 in the front throws Excel a curveball, but flash fill was able to figure it out. Unfortunately, if the original data is more complex than that, you won't have as much luck. Let's clear the return date field and change the last cell to August 27th, 1987. Now perform the flash fill again and you'll see the output value is 32016. This is the serial number representing the date of cell D6, but that's not what we wanted. We only wanted the 4-digit year. I could even change the format of the output value to a date, but I get the entire date, not just the year. To help flash fill pull the information you want, you'd have to change the format by pressing Ctrl+1, selecting Custom, and changing the format to YYYY for a 4-digit year, which isn't so complicated, but it's an extra step that flash fill in Excel can't do on its own. Finally, we can get really creative and use flash fill to generate as passwords for different users. Of course, you need fields to pull the data from, but this method can be used for any number of functions. For instance, applying what you're about to learn can also be used to create a list of email addresses or product SKUs. So to start, let's type in the password for our first user. Be sure to mix up your upper and lower case and add in some special characters. You'll see that I separated each section with a special character and only included the first 4 characters of the last name. Once you flash fill the rest, you've got a fairly secure password list to hand out. The only downside is that you can't exercise more creativity with this. Let's say you wanted to take the favorite color and have it spelled backwards to add a higher level of security. Unfortunately, flash fill doesn't pick up on this reversal, even with an extra row to help it learn the pattern. So while it's a quick way to manipulate your source data, it won't perform the same way formulas and dynamic functions will.
So that's flash fill. It's simple to use and a game changer of a tool in Excel for splitting up data, substituting functions, and even more complex tasks. If you haven't already tried it, I recommend you do. I'm willing to bet it becomes one of your favorite go-to features that Excel has to offer. And if you love its effortless functionality, then you'll be amazed by this next batch of tricks I have for you. See you soon, data people.